Hello and welcome back to another podcast. My name is Sawera Ahmed and I am a trainee sports journalist at Pulse Social. Today's guest is Jade Harris, who is here today to discuss her experience of playing sport and offer encouragement to women to take part as well. Hello Jade, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. First of all, thank you for being on our podcast today.
It's all right.
Can you just start off by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jade. I live in North London, and I've been involved in sports since probably about the age of 4. So it's something that I really, really enjoy. And yeah, I spend a lot of time watching sports, talking about sports. So yeah.
So you've had a love for sports since a really young age. Can you tell us more about your experience playing sports growing up?
Yeah, so I mean the sort of usual when you're like primary school doing PE, things like that. But I also got involved with Nottingham Forest, where I'm originally from, at the age of sort of 7. So joined their sessions and really developed my love for football from that, really. So that was something that I did quite early on, and then continued with that later on. Joined Tottenham Hotspur Ladies. I was there for a couple of seasons, and then moved over to concentrate on basketball, and did that sort of throughout the end of secondary school, college, and through university as well, before going all the way back to playing football again as an adult.
Did you experience any problems while you were playing during your teenage years?
I would say probably the biggest thing was around sort of accessing sports. So a lot of the facilities were quite far away or really hard to get to. And if you've got a session in the evening, parents being a bit reluctant to let you travel quite far distances by yourself in the evenings, and the cost of it as well. So boys that we were sort of playing with, or like the same age at school, they were starting to get allowances, or even just people would be picking them up or helping them with their travel, whereas we were paying for everything ourselves, and having to get there and not getting any other support outside of that. So I would say that was definitely a difficulty, and actually a barrier when you're trying to progress, when you've got your local teams, but as soon as you want to move up a level, that's even further to travel, or you've got to do it more frequently. And if you were struggling financially to get to the first sort of places, it's going to be even harder to try and do that. And I just think people not really having an idea of what the opportunities are as well. So whereas now there's a lot more visibility for women's sports, particularly around football. That wasn't the case when I was that age, when I was a teenager. And so not really having those visible people to sort of look at and see their journey, and be able to really say to people, that's what I want to do, that's the pathway I want to take. So not really seeing that. I think those are the main things, and I guess just people not really understanding why you want to play sports anyway. So it's trying to convince people that it's a fun thing to do, but as a teenager, your body's changing, you're trying to get used to all of those changes. There's lots of comments being made about, if you're training and you're putting on muscle, people saying that your body's quite masculine and things like that. And as a teenager, and last thing you want to do is draw attention to your body. So having to deal with those changes and people not really understanding why you'd want to be all hot and sweaty running around to begin with, I would say, yeah, that's definitely things that I faced as a teenager.
Of course, and that definitely makes it a lot more difficult because when you're hearing that and you're so motivated and you want to persevere through it, it definitely would have an effect. So, what would you say helped you to not listen to it or to keep motivated, to keep playing?
I think I was lucky that I've got parents who, you know, were very encouraging of me playing. Um, and so, you know, they said, you enjoy it, this is what you want to do in terms of like as a leisure activity. So that's fine. Go and enjoy it and, you know, go to the sessions, preferably in the day. But yeah, go and enjoy yourself. And I suppose I had friends around me who I'd played sports with at school for a number of years who were also playing, and we were in a sort of environment at school where it was encouraged by the, you know, the sports coaches and um, by people who were also playing sports. But I think that's probably what kept me going is the people around me that were active in sports and were quite encouraging.
Of course, it's really, really important to have that around you. Um,
Yeah.
Definitely. So, looking at the This Girl Can campaign, in particular the enjoyment gap for women in sports, one aspect was that women feel unsafe while they're partaking in sports. What advice would you give to women or an organization in helping to keep women feel safe and helping them to enjoy sports?
I think you really need to think about things like facilities, making sure that things are open. Like there's plenty of times you go to different venues and they're not expecting female participants. So sometimes only the male changing rooms or toilets are open, and you've got to then go and find someone to go and open something. So you feel like, okay, this, you know, it's not welcoming. And that's a really big message, that whole idea of not being welcomed. um, when you're having changeovers of sessions, a lot of the times if you've got guys coming on after you, some of them want to try and walk in a little bit earlier, or, you know, be quite intimidating to get people off before it's time. So I think being conscious of those kind of practical things as well. um, Designing sessions that feel different from PE, because I think a lot of people get turned off from sports at, you know, when they're at school at that age, as I said, when your body's changing, and not enjoying PE kind of carries on later on. So it's like, what can you do to make those sessions really enjoyable so people want to do it and want to get involved and run around and everything like that, but it doesn't feel so much like people are like pointing at you like in PE to do exactly what the teacher's telling you to do. So making sure that it's fun, it's different, it's active, and that you actually really want to go. um, and having places that, again, in terms of like venues, just thinking about how people are going to get there. So if your venue is at the bottom of a really dark road, it's like, that's, again, that's not welcoming, and it doesn't make you feel safe when you have to travel there. So it's like, I don't run around locally at night. You know, I make sure that if I'm going for a run outside, it's somewhere that's well lit, or I'm going quite early in the day. So it's being conscious again of how people are going to travel to those sessions, um, and what's the awareness of the coaches of what it's like in terms of being a woman running around playing sports. So the physical side of it, when you're menstruating, how that feels. So yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm pretty sure everyone will appreciate the advice and take it on. This is more an advice as well. So if someone does have like a negative experience whilst playing sports, what advice or encouragement would you give to them to not let that affect them and to continue playing?
I would say, have a think about what was that experience? So was that something linked to the venue? Was it linked to the providers? Was it linked to other people sort of involved in that sporting activity? Is there someone that you can talk to about your experience in terms of helping you to get some support around managing that? Or is it a case of actually going somewhere else, really? Not giving up on something that you've enjoyed the activity itself. Like don't pull away from that because of a bad experience. Maybe you just need to find somewhere that you feel a little bit more comfortable with, people who I think take your safety and well-being more into account. So yeah, don't give up because you've had a bad experience. Just try and find somewhere that fits better for you if you can't have that problem solved where you currently are.
Definitely, I agree with that as well. So you've definitely played sports since a young age. How do you incorporate sports into your daily life today?
I mean, it's a lot harder as an adult, I suppose. When you're younger and you're at school, like I remember I used to go to like morning training before lessons. I'd train at lunchtime, I'd train after school. And obviously, as an adult, you're working full time. That time isn't available to do that. But I try and, fit in a few early morning sessions. So either at the gym or go for an early morning run before work. Once a week, I play five-a-side football after work as well. And then the training for that. So just trying to, for me, it's my work-life balance. So I can't spend all my time sort of in front of my laptop. It's making sure that I dedicate that time, whether it's an hour or so a day, to just go and get out, go and do something quite active. So yeah, so it's really just making sure I find that time and I dedicate it to keep going, really.
Definitely, it's really important. And just to wrap up, in terms of women in sports, of course, there is a gradual change over time, but what do you hope over the next coming years will change or improve for women whilst playing sports?
I think things like funding are always going to be a massive thing. I think in particularly around sort of football, there's a lot more that's going into women's teams. So even from like grassroots level, you're getting coaches qualified, and so you're getting a better spot. I can't speak. You're getting a better start in the sport. Based on you're having coaches who know what they're doing. Also the equipment and being able to support players who financially might not otherwise be able to access those sports as well. A lot more visibility. So people are seeing women's sports now. It's becoming a lot more normalized to see girls and women playing sports. And so they're a lot more sort of encouraged to get involved as well, because they can see like, okay, this is actually a pathway. This is something you could do moving forward. And actually, for parents to see that as well. So parents can see that there are little girls who really want to go and watch those sports. And so they go into stadiums and things like that. And like I remember going to England games years ago when there were, a couple thousand people there, and I was at the women's Euros final, and absolutely sold out Wembley. It was brilliant. So it's having those moments, those opportunities to experience that and say, right, there is a lot of interest in this, and it will continue to grow if it's promoted and people have the opportunity to really see it. So yeah, and I think things like research into it as well. So obviously now there's a lot of quite high profile players that are going to miss the Women's World Cup, unfortunately, with ACL injuries. And that, people are finally starting to ask that question, like, why is it that ACL tears are so prevalent in women's sports, particularly in women's football? So being able to put that research in at an elite level and say, right, this is what we kind of need to look at. And is it around equipment? Does there need to be more female specific equipment? Do we need to look more at training? But answering those questions really, so that we know a little bit more about what's going on and can actually support those players. And that will then always sort of filter down into grassroots sports as well, in terms of the best way to look after young female athletes.
Definitely, that's most important, and hopefully we do see these changes come on.
Yeah.
I just want to say a huge thank you for being on the podcast today.
No problem.
Yeah, I hope you have a good day.
And you?
Thank you.